That now as we're joined by NewsNation contributor, the Republican Denise Gitsham, and by the Democratic strategist, Jonathan Cott. Okay, welcome to you both. Good to talk to you both. You know, there's a couple of places I guess we can start. Let's start, though, with trade, because it's the topic that we haven't actually talked about as much today as we normally do. Denise, what's the expectation, you think, going into this weekend? Because the Secretary of the Treasury is going to be over there in Switzerland, trade rep as well. They're starting things off with China. Are we going to find, you know, no other deals on the table yet, but maybe we make some progress with China? What's realistic?
I think a conversation is progress, and I think that you'll see that most Americans feel the same way. Right now, it seems like both sides are intractable in their positions, that they're committed to really mutually assured destruction the way things are going. And I think that there's a sense in America, you've heard this said over and over the past few days, that China seems to be bleeding. That is at least the impression that they want to give to all of us, to say, hold on, hold the line, we're winning this war. But of course, China's going to say the opposite. So any sort of conversation is going to be a step in the right direction to lowering tariffs and hopefully reestablishing some sort of normalcy. Okay,
in the middle of all this, you have this back and forth. Denise, I'll ask you about this in a minute, but Jonathan, we have this back and forth over President Trump, how he's been handling trade in particular, and how he's been phrasing his argument about what Americans should expect, especially with how many dolls our children apparently should have. But anyway, here's the president.
All I'm saying is that a young lady, a 10-year-old girl, 9-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl doesn't need 37 dolls. She could be very happy with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I wouldn't. Let's not waste a lot of time on a stupid question.
So this idea, Jonathan, is that having an effect? This idea, you know, is he being seen as out of touch, or does Trump kind of get a pass on these things? What's your read?
I mean, he's out of touch to think anybody is buying 30 dolls. The unfortunate reality is Americans can't buy 1 doll, let alone 2 dolls for their kids because of his reckless policies. I mean, he could have started negotiations and then implemented tariffs if they didn't work. I'd also point out he's been lying to the American people the entire time. He's been saying he's been having conversations, and the American people have been having conversations, or his government has been having conversations with the Chinese. They've been denying it the entire time. His Treasury Secretary finally admitted it when he was testifying before Congress, where he couldn't lie, when he said, no, we haven't. So now that we're starting it, I'm hoping that we can get an agreement and maybe we can bring some stability back and we can stop this chaotic, nonsensical, and just ridiculous trade war that we've started. But yeah, it's ridiculous for him to say we don't need 30 dolls, we could have 3, and maybe they don't need all these pencils. He should get a grip on reality and realize that Americans just want to be able to afford their goods, and the reason they're not able to is because of his policies that he just put in place for no reason.
The reason I wanted to ask you, Denise, about it is because our colleagues at The Hill had a story that said some Republicans are looking at this and saying, all right, Mr. President, essentially, knock it off with the dolls. No more doll talk. Do you think the messaging here hurts? Because there's an interim period that we're in right now where they're kind of asking us to kind of hang with them or hang with him.
Yeah, and I want to point out first that Democrats weren't saying anything about what people could and couldn't afford when we had record inflation in June of 2022. So that point aside, I do want to go back to, what I really think President Trump is missing in his communication strategy right now, which is calling Americans to a higher sense of sacrifice and patriotism that will actually change behaviors to conform to what he's hoping that they'll take on. And, tomorrow's VE Day, so this is a timely example, but President Roosevelt in World War II, he made a national call for sacrifice, and he asked people to accept higher prices and lower wages, even taxes, higher taxes. And people understood that the sacrifice was going to result in something. So I think President Trump really needs to explain to us why weaning off of Chinese and other foreign goods is important strategically. And I think he needs to tell us what we can do to help us get there. But I also think he needs to give us a timeline so we know when we can expect that sacrifice to end. Is there an end to the pain? And then the last thing I think he needs to do is to give us some sort of incentive, some sort of financial balancing that actually helps us endure during the times of sacrifice. If he can do those 4 things and sort of connect the dots from point A to B to C to D, I think that he'll find Americans willingly jumping on board with the direction he's going.
Okay, Jonathan, I want to ask you what you think of that, or whether people would. I do want to make one other point, though, because, and Denise, you go first on this one. Bring it up on the tablet, the Trump approval rating. We talked so much, and I probably asked you about it so much when it was going down. It's still underwater, as they say, 45% approval. But I think I could show the latter end, like right here, just a little bit of a tick up in the approval and a tick down in the disapproval. It's been a couple of points in the last week. So, he had a few bad weeks, and now he's going up a little bit in the last week. Should we, I don't know, should we read into anything to that, as maybe we shouldn't have been reading into it all the way down? What do you say, Denise?
I'm not sure it really matters that much, because Democrats are so low comparatively that what's the alternative? I'm not hearing any alternative. And so, whether it goes up or down, as long as he's not underneath the Democrats, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. A decent week after a bunch of weeks that were not, that did not look good in the polls. All right, Jonathan, thought on that. And then to Denise's point, if the president articulated it and said, all right, you got to sacrifice, would people buy in?
No, they wouldn't, because he's not going to say that, because he will never admit that his policies aren't amazing and the country isn't. Like, all he says is everything is working perfectly, right? He just gets up there and he lies. He says gas prices are at $1.98. That's just a blatant lie. There's no facts to back that up. He says we have more eggs than we can possibly, eat. That's just a lie. I would point out to Denise, in 2022, Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act, we passed the CHIPS and Science Act, we passed the Infrastructure Act, and that is the reason that inflation is coming down and prices are coming down now. It took way too long because government is slow, and it took too long for these policies to get implemented, but that is the reason prices and inflation are coming down. We actually implemented policies. Donald Trump just gets into the Oval Office and lies about things. So no, I don't expect him to go in there and say, hey, my policies are going to take some time to go into effect. You're going to feel some pain for it, because he just won't admit that.
So you bring up Democrats. We have time, I think, for one more topic. And, going back to the Biden administration, the former president, his first interview since leaving office with the BBC. Last hour, we talked about what he said about Ukraine a little bit, but he also defended his decision about when to drop out of the office and whether the race and whether it mattered. Here's what he said about that.
I don't think it would have mattered. We left at a time when we had a good candidate. She is fully funded. I meant what I said when I started, that I think I'm prepared to hand this to the next generation.
All right. I actually need quick responses from both, if that's okay. Jonathan, you first.
He's wrong. He should have dropped out much sooner. There should have been an open primary, and we would have had a better candidate. It wouldn't have been Kamala Harris. He's just wrong on that.
Yep. I think I agree on timing. Denise?
I completely agree with Jonathan. He was in the low approval ratings, historically low, at 37% in November of 2023 and November of 2022. He should have known better. He drugged the entire down ticket down, and he's the reason Democrats lost.
Thank you both, Denise and Jonathan. Good discussion, as always. All the smoke, we're following it. We were talking